it's MK. Welcome back to MK Quilts. Well, today we have a little bit of a combination video for you. So if you've been following me, you know that I've been talking about my dear friend Paula Joe Cedarquist for a while, and she has become a video contributor over on my video training store on MK Quilts. But a few days ago, she was working in her studio on Pro Stitcher. Now, she is a handy quilter owner. She has fusion with Pro Stitcher. Now, Paula Joe is mostly a free motion gal, but she does use her Pro Stitcher quite a bit. And the other day she had a project she was working on, and she had a little bit of an aha moment. But in the middle of the aha moment, she also had, I bet MK could help me a little bit with this aha moment. So she sent me the video, she gave me permission to use it, and what I want you to do is, first of all, transition from this video into watching the short clip that Paula Joe did. And then I'm going to take you inside a simulation and show you how I thought the process through. So if you want to use this technique on a future project where you are stitching two quilts side by side and you have a little bit of stitch crunch, as Paula Joe calls it, you might want to try this technique. So take a listen to Paula Joe. I'll meet you inside a simulation, and then I'll meet you right back here.
Okay, hi, Paula Joe from Cedar Quilts, back again, and I just wanted to show you, I had a really quick idea. So right now today I've been working on two quilts at the same time, side by side. I'm using the same edge-to-edge Panto on both of them, and I have my center lined up in the center, and as I get through one, I'm finding that I need to readjust the second one just a little bit. And so each time I get to the center, I pause it, I stop it, and then I readjust my pattern a little bit over here so that things stay lined up. Because there's a little bit of stitch scrunch. When you stitch, things kind of shrink up a little bit. They scrunch together a little bit. And so then my pattern's getting off a little bit. Normally I do a lot of free motion, and so I stabilize everything before I go back, and then I put in my details, and then I go back again and I do my fills. And I don't do a lot of edge-to-edge pantos because I do so much custom work. And usually when I do a edge-to-edge pattern, it's not this huge, but because I'm doing two side by side, it ends up getting pretty big. So the little bit of stitch scrunch that's happening keeps adding up the further I get to the end over here. So anyway, I had this great idea. And so anyway, I think I could set it up in my machine, but I bet Melissa could really set it up even easier. But what I'm thinking is, and of course now I'm down to my last row or so here, so it's too late for this one, but it'll be fine for the next one. But when I get to the center between the two quilts, I've been pausing, and then I readjust my start and stop. Let's see if I can do this. And then I reposition my start and stop, and I turn on and off the auto start and whatnot with each one. But I bet we could set it up in the original Panto. When I originally set things up, we could probably put a pause, a jump, in there in the very center, and then every time I get to the center it would automatically stop, instead of me having to kind of babysit and watch when I'm doing 3 or 4 or 5 other things. I'm working on some table runners over there too. But anyway, I kept peeking over here and then going back, and I didn't quite catch it, so I had to unstitch a little bit here, and now I'm redoing it. But anyway, yeah, I think that would be a really good idea. I think it'd be a good option. So anyway, I bet Melissa over at MK Quilts can figure out how to do that really easily with the computery parts, and she can tell us all how to do it. So anyway, in the meantime, I gotta go again. I've got 3 million things to do. I'll see you later. Toodaloo.
All right, everybody, let's get started. I'm going to give you a couple of options in this video about how to approach this project. So what you're looking at on the screen, again, just a visual representation of the project that Paula was working on that day in her studio. Basically, we have a quilt loaded on the left, we have a quilt loaded on the right. And I do believe that the way that she had originally set this up was just to have a master pantograph that she had set up wide enough to cover both of the quilts. And then what she was attempting to do was either pause the machine in the middle of these passes or create a new start and stop point so that the machine would stop so that she could make slight adjustments on the right hand side. Okay, she said she was having some stitch scrunch, I think she called it, and she wanted to make some alignment adjustments. If you think about treating this as one big pantograph to cover these two quilts, and you pause the machine in the middle and make an adjustment over here, what you're really doing is making an adjustment on this side as well. If you use the modify reposition, and maybe you're just going to nudge it a little bit to accomplish what you want to accomplish over here, by having this all connected, you're also going to adjust it on the left-hand side, and that might not be what you want to do. So as I thought it through when she gave me a shout out that day in her video, I thought what I might want to do is treat this pantograph separately from this one. So here is the two options that I'm going to give you for the way to set that up. Okay, option number one, we're going to go ahead and set up our pantograph just like you see it here. Now, I'm not going to go into setting up this pantograph. I have a whole complete video on the MK way of setting up pantographs. If you're interested in that, you can hop on over to mkquilts.com and into my video training store. But we're going to all assume that we can get our pantograph set up to what it appears like on the screen. We're going to move our machine into position over here. We're going to do a two corner. We're going to come over here just into the center of the first quilt and we'll do our second two corner. Okay, now if you're like me in my studio and if you only have set your pantograph to a limited number of rows in height, then I am going to go ahead and adjust the height of my area. Okay, so in simulation, obviously I don't have rails to use as a guide for how tall that area box would have been. But I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to make my area box just to be a digit that's taller than the pantograph that I'm working with because I just want to crop it off on the sides. Right now I'm not worried about cropping it off on the top or the bottom. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before I crop it is I'm going to align it to the top of this area box. And what that will do is really get this pantograph aligned towards the top, which is going to be the position that I want it for both of these pantographs as far as the top goes. All right, so let's go into Modify Align and let's just align it to the top. Now, because I have been working with crop for quite a long time and I know that sometimes crop can give you a little bit of a quirky outcome if you align a pantograph or a pattern all the way up snug onto the area box. So I'm going to try to avoid just a little bit of quirkiness with crop, and I'm going to go modify reposition, and I'm going to nudge that position, or rather nudge that pantograph off of that area box just ever so slightly. Then I'm going to go ahead and do my modify crop. I'm going to do closed outside, and I'm creating just my pantograph for this side of the process. Okay, I'm going to baseline. That reveals the name of the pantograph that I had given it. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to rename that. I'm going to call it For the Left. And naming it over here does not save it, and I am a person who likes to save. If you've taken any of my classes, you know that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I had been working through this previously, so it's already there. So yes, I'm just going to go ahead and rename it. Okay, well now we want to get the pantograph over here. And really one of the quickest ways that we can do that, rather than going back and opening it up and repositioning it or anything like that, is if we just go through our Edit History button and we get to the point where we were prior to having cropped it on this side. Okay, so now what we can do, we already have the left side saved. We can just go ahead, clear the area. We can move our machine into position over here on the other quilt. We'll do our 2-corner. We'll come off the right hand side of the quilt, do our other 2-corner. Again, if you were me, I would just really quickly make that area box higher than the pattern. And now I don't need to do any nudging this time because I had already got that pattern aligned properly when I was working on it on the left hand side. So I don't have to do any nudging this time before I do my crop. I'm just going to go under Modify Crop. We'll do Closed Edges outside. That looks good. We're going to hit Baseline. Again, that brings it back to what it was previously called. I don't want that. How about we call it For the Right? And naming it doesn't save it. And just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And yes, I had already been working it and saved it that way. Okay, now we need to get this guy back over here before we start stitching, don't we? So how about we just go under our File, Design menu. Let's just pick the one for the left-hand side, and it should pop right back in there where we had it before. Okay, now one thing about this option, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just clear the area. We don't need that anymore. And what I want to show you with this option is that you can decide at this point how you want to stitch this out. If you look at what we've done right here, we've created a pantograph for this side. Let me go ahead and open it up on the workspace. If we only select this pantograph and begin stitching, we're only going to stitch on this side. It's going to stitch this pass, come to that spot right there, and jump down over here. Now, you can decide if you want to stitch it that way. It's probably going to depend on how deep your throat depth is and how big that pantograph is, so you can decide to do that. But what if you decided that you wanted to stitch through this row and have it skip over to this pattern rather than go down to this pattern? Well, one might think that all you would have to do is select these two together. So we have new select tools with Pro Stitcher Premium. So if we go ahead and select first the left one and then the right one, I want you to look at the start and stop points. Even though we have them selected together, the start and stop points are still first on this side and then next on this side. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. Let's go into Pro Stitcher, New Start and End. And what I want you to do is watch the start circles as I jump through from one to the next. Okay, so it would start by stitching that first pass, and then it would come over here again. Then it would want to go to that row, which probably by that time we're not going to be able to fit in that row. And then it's going to hop over to this side. So even though we selected them together, it's still wanting to stitch this side before it goes over to stitch this side. Now, you could stop your machine in the center of this pass, just stop it all together, jump ahead to that start point right there and stitch over here. But again, we may not want to be doing all of that jumping between start and stop points as we're stitching this out. We might want to do it that way, we might not. Let me show you another option for going ahead and stitching first from this row and then having it stitch over to this row. All right, what I'm going to do right now is just show you an option, and I'm not going to go through the steps, but I just want to give you something to think about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a design that I had taken into Art and Stitch and re-sequenced. So basically what you're looking at the screen right now is the exact same pantographs that we were just looking at just a minute ago. But you will notice that they are now one complete pattern. And if I go ahead and select that, and then I go to my Pro Stitcher New Start and End, I want you to again watch the start circles where they're going to jump to this time. Okay, I'm going to hit the jump. Okay, it's over here. I'm going to hit jump and it's going to jump over to that spot. Well, that might be what you want rather than stitching over here and then coming over and stitching over here. Okay, again, watch the circle as I jump, and now it goes over to this side. Watch the circle again as I jump, and now it goes over to this side. So all I did with the pattern that I previously created was I took it into Art and Stitch and I did a function called resequence. You can find out about resequencing if you just go through some of the tutorials that are built into the Art and Stitch website. So let's say that you wanted to accomplish this. You wanted this pattern to stitch first on the left with the first row and then next on the first row but on the right hand side. But you didn't want to accomplish that through Art and Stitch, or maybe you're not quite there with those skills yet and you just want to accomplish this exact same scenario, but you want to do it all from within Pro Stitcher. Okay, so let's try that. That's going to be the next option I want to show you really quickly. So let's just close that one. Let's go ahead and this time we're going to open up that pantograph that I had created way back in the beginning of this video. And rather than having 3 rows of the pantograph, let's go ahead and crop that pantograph off to only 1 row. So did you see what I did there? I went and I jumped my stop circle back to the end of the first pass. I'm just going to do a modify crop and I'm going to do the start and end crop. So now I just have 1 pass of this pantograph. I'm going to go ahead and baseline and I'm going to go ahead and save again because I like to do that just so that I don't lose anything. And we'll just call this for Paula Joe 1 row or something that makes sense to you. Okay, so now we just have 1 pass of the pantograph. Again, we're going to go ahead and cut it off for this side. So I would bring my machine into position over here, do a 2 corner, bring my machine down. This time I'm only dealing with 1 row, so I'm probably going to be able to just leave my area height the height that it is. Again, before I move along, I'm just going to do a modify align, and I'm going to align that to the top of that area box. And really quickly, I'm just going to nudge it down really a very short distance so that I don't have any funkiness going on with my crop. I'm going to go ahead and do a closed outside crop. I'm just going to go ahead and baseline. Now I'm going to call that one for left. And then we'll go ahead and save it. Renaming it doesn't save it. And yep, I had already named it. We're just going to do that again. Okay, now let's get that over here and let's crop this off. So again, let's go under our history. Let's get ourselves down to where we had just nudged it. We'll go ahead and clear our area. We can do our area over on the other side now. 2 corner, come down, off to the right hand side, 2 corner. Probably want to come in a little bit. That was a little far out there. 2 corner. There we go. And let's just go ahead and modify crop, closed, and outside. Okay, we go ahead and baseline. I'm going to rename it for the right. Naming it doesn't save it. I like to save, so I'm just going to save for the right. And yes, I had renamed it that, so we'll just save right over the top of it. Now let's get this guy back over here really quickly. We can do that through the design menu. Now we have them both side by side independently. Let's go ahead and clear our area. We don't really need that anymore. Everything is positioned. Now let's go ahead and select our multiple select tool, turn on our workspace. We have the left one selected, we have the right one selected. Now that we have them selected side by side, we can just go ahead and repeat them vertically. We can just go ahead and close our gap distance. Let's just try a minus 0.5 there. I'm just guessing. You go ahead and adjust your gap distance as needed. And then let's just go ahead and do one more vertical repeat just so that we can see what's going to happen here. Okay, I would go ahead and baseline. Now I would go ahead and save this. And maybe I would call this my master pattern for Paula Joe. Okay, so now we have basically the same type of a layout that we had before, but now when we go into Pro Stitch or New Start and Stop, watch the circle. It's going to jump first from there, then to there, then to there, then to there. Okay, so maybe that's the way that you want to approach it. Okay, at this point, I want you to make sure that you understand that even though in this last option we were able to get our start and stop points in the correct order so that we could stitch the top of one pass and then go to the top of the next pass and so on and so forth. Even though we were able to accomplish that, the grouping that we have made is still a connected grouping. Because of the way that we selected it and baselined it and saved it, it just means that if we stop to make an adjustment and nudge it one way or the other, we are still affecting the pattern on the other side. So if you're going to approach a situation like this, stitching a quilt side by side is a really fast way to get two projects done at once. But if you want to cut them apart like this so that you can make some alignment or some nudge adjustments, you might want to stop every time you advance so that you are sure that each row you're stitching on whichever side you're on is properly placed. And you can accomplish that by using your follow button. Our zoom tools are awesome now in Pro Stitcher Premium. So just take a couple of seconds before you start stitching if you've made any sort of adjustment to make sure that your next pass is going to be exactly where you want it. All right, so there you have it. Some things to think about, right? I think that we have all had that situation come up where we have two small quilts and we can load them at the same time. Makes our jobs go quicker, right? Well, if you're having that situation like Paula Joe did with a little bit of variance from one quilt to the next, you can certainly pause things, move your start and stop points to accomplish that. But think about cropping that panto apart, and then you have two separate sets of start points that relate to those quilts. You just want to make sure if you're using the same panto and you make an adjustment on one side, that when you go to stitch the pass, the next advance, you want to make sure that you're lined up again for the quilt on the left. So it's going to have to require you to slow down a little bit, think about those start points, but it's very manageable to break them apart like that. And also think about this. You wouldn't have to use the same panto on both quilts. You could just set up one panto for the left quilt, another panto for the right quilt, and again, you're just going to have to be very careful as you advance that you're positioning yourself on the correct start point. But it's very doable. All right, so I thank Paula Joe for giving me a shout out on that one. It was fun to just stop quick and think, well, how would I do that? And bring it to you so that hopefully it might help you on a future project. All right, everybody, until next time, from my studio to yours, happy quilting. Bye-bye.
Sings my heart, sings.